Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Happy
morning.
Friday.
Happy Friday. What about those white-bellied sea eagles?
Oh, I know, they're pretty cool, aren't they?
Pretty cool. In Australia,
Yeah.
and they're not a species we see in this part of the world at all. I think they perform the same sort of ecological role as our ospreys do, really. They're principally coastal, though, but they're very widely distributed. You get them around the coast of India. I mean, they can be quite...
Look at them, those chicks.
I know. They can be quite common. And, of course, they're dead easy to spot. They've got that, well, when it's not... when it's not in infrared, in the dark, they've got a lovely pale lavender back and a bright white. It's not cream; it's a white head and chest. So when they're flying around, they're dead easy to spot. And they'll fish along the coast. About 50% of their diet's fish. The rest they'll take as carrion. And they're a medium-sized eagle. I mean, they're nowhere near as big as the white-tailed eagle, which catches fish here. So I guess they're actually probably about osprey size, to be quite honest with you, from memory. All the way around, as I was saying, around the coast of India, throughout the Indonesia, all the way down Papua as well, you see them, and then ringing the coast of Australia, where these birds are in Sydney.
Yeah, this wildlife cam's brought to us by BirdLife Australia. So if you want to keep up to date, all you have to do is go to www.birdlife.org.au, where you can find this live cam and keep up to date and watch as these little chicks develop. I say little chicks, they're quite large now.
They're doing well, aren't they?
Yeah, they're doing good.
The thing is, BirdLife is something you should be checking out fairly regularly as well. BirdLife are, what should we call them, an umbrella organisation. So lots of people work in partnership with BirdLife all over the world, and they have an array of amazing projects. BirdLife Europe is certainly worth checking out. They don't just deal with conservation in that form, they also deal with all of the other problems faced by birds. They're looking at world's biodiversity hotspots, trying to protect those. They also help us campaign, haven't they, in the past, when it comes to Cyprus and Malta and those sorts of things.
Yeah, they've been great.
Brilliant. BirdLife are absolutely fantastic. So do check out both their regional, as you mentioned. What was this one? AU, Australian.
AU, Australia.
BirdLife Australia. But check out the other BirdLives as well. And they do have plenty of these cameras.
There's quite a lot.
Scattered around the world as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously fewer now. We're heading into autumn, but obviously on the other side of the world, the other hemisphere, then it's, it's a very different story.
Well, we're going to spend our winter looking at sunny times down south.
Yeah, we all need that, don't we? In the winter, we need a bit of sun, even if it's just virtual sun.
Hey, listen, I wonder if there are any good penguin cameras that we'll be able to log into, because penguins, obviously, at the other end of the planet, do their breeding in our winter, their summer.
Well, it would be more in the warm environments, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but no, but I mean, wouldn't
it be cool to have like an Antarctic?
Yes.
An Antarctic cam.
Don't worry, folks. Yes. If they're up there, we'll find them.
We're on the case. We're going to be looking out.
We'll find them.
We're going to be scouring the web for penguin cams.
Certainly will. Right, what have we got coming up today then?
Oh, lots of great stuff, haven't we? Oh, we're going to be joined live by the one and only Hedgehog Hugh Warwick, who has joined us a few times, but we just can't have enough of him.
No,
he's coming back
great.
again.
He'll be back
soon. More about hedgehogs and some great projects there, and of course his new book.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking. Well, Indy Greene is doing kind of a mindfulness film for us. Fantastic Indy, who we absolutely love to have on the show. So he's done a fantastic film that's coming up. We've got a soapbox. It is a bit of an important soapbox.
Oh, it is today, I'm afraid. Yeah. But we're joined by Dominic Dyer. They'll give you a clue as to what it's about. And Dominic gives a very forceful presentation. Dominic is a great champion of wildlife per se. He's a fantastic orator, absolutely brilliant orator. And we've asked him to give us 3 minutes on what he thinks about the badger cull being expanded. And that's worth hanging on for. So we'll have a little chat about that later on. What else we got? Oh, of course, the Natural History Museum. Stephanie West contacted us a little while back now to tell us a bit about their Brilliant Butterflies project, which is a project that's running on the south side of London. She's joined by people from the London Wildlife Trust and Butterfly Conservation to tell us about some very exciting new science that they're doing and great conservation work. So they've made a film for us, which is fantastic. Steph's always really, oh, sorry, I jogged the camera there. I had a minor earthquake with my knee. My patella's been destroyed, but don't worry about that, folks. And so she'll be coming up.
And we've got your photos and videos too. So that's always good. We always enjoy that. We love when you send your images into us, what you've been seeing around the country, actually, around the globe, to be honest. And with that, we've got lots of hellos coming through every morning. Kate is overwhelmed by your messages saying hi, so we wanted to say hi back. So we've got Edward in Yorkshire, Susanna in Northumberland, we've got Michelle in Birmingham, Barry in Basingstoke, we've got Anna in Edinburgh, Heather in North Wales, Janet in North Lincolnshire, Andy in Glasgow, Wanda in the Netherlands, and Vivian in Durham. Hello everyone watching. Thank you very much for sticking with us.
Okay, fantastic stuff. Right. Should we have a quiz?
Let's do it.
Go on then, you do the first part of it because I've got an impromptu quiz.
Oh no.
Yep, sorry, just some stuff I picked up.
God, welcome to my childhood. Anyway, every week we give you a quiz. We get a sound and we ask you to identify who is making that sound. So this week is a pretty good one, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Let's have a little listen. Now you might have heard some barking there.
Yeah.
The quiz is not. The answer is not poodle. just so we're sure on that. I hope you did hear that properly because Nancy decided to bark at the worst possible time. Yeah. But it's a very distinctive thing. Tricky though. It is.
Well, it's only tricky because the birds have become a lot less frequent than they used to be. When I were a kid, but they didn't live around where I was. But I go out in the weekends in the summer and I'd hear that call very frequently. Quite melodious, short, not too complex a song, but certainly diagnostic of that species. I've just noticed that we mustn't forget this. Look.
Oh yes, of course. We had a lovely comment sent in to us, and we wanted to just read it aloud to surprise Joy Edwards. So Joy sent us a message saying, "I've realised this week how much the club means to me. I was told by my boss that I will be going to work all week, so I will miss Friday's SIBC. Am I being overly dramatic by saying how devastated I feel?" It's very sweet.
Yeah, thank you, Joy.
So sweet. Thank you so much.
But you can get it on catch up. You better watch it.
Exactly.
Lunchtime.
So I hope when you watch this at lunch break or when you're watching this when you get home from work that you've had a good day at work and that this is a nice thing to come home to and watch on catch up.
Okay, impromptu quiz in 2 parts. Okay, so this is the first part. It's back to the skull of the day. So here we are. I picked this up in the woods this week. So look, underneath here are the teeth. Remember, they were really important when we were talking about skull of the day all of those months ago, talking about how you identify animals by looking at their teeth and the shape of the skull. Yeah, I'll give it to you head on like that. Look at where the eyes are positioned.
Side-facing eyes.
Yeah, there we are. And look at the size of it. Here's my hand for scale. Okay. So here we are. So this is a small skull that I picked up in the woods here in the New Forest. It's lost a little bit off the front. It's been nibbled, actually. It's been nibbled by a fox, I imagine, here, because I picked it up somewhere where the foxes are active. So it's lost a little bit of its nose, but not much. Its nose would have only come out to about there. Okay, so that's first skull. And what I would draw your attention to are these indentations here. See that in front of the eye? Yeah, in there. And I would also draw your attention to these sort of ridges that run down the skull like this, and the teeth, of course. Right, that's the first one. The second one.
Two skulls, goodness.
Yeah, I know. Right, okay, this one's a little bit smaller, but look at this. But this one's got a story to it. This is why I'm including this one. Okay, so that's the side view. Look, see those teeth there. Then there's a gap, and then there are these other teeth here.
The colour of those incisors.
Yeah, look at the colour of those incisors makes us right. Look at that. See, they're like orangey colour. And then, okay, here it is from the top view. Okay, and there it is from the front view.
Do you know what? We should invest in like a 3D scanner so people can skin it.
Yeah.
Do you know what,
Yeah.
And then you get like a...
What I like about this skull, though, Megs, is I picked this skull up under the nest of the goshawk. So what I like about this is that this animal, okay, has been nibbled by goshawk chicks at some point this spring. This skull's got predatory history. Yeah. So at some stage out in the woods, a goshawk swooped upon this animal, killed it, took it back to the nest. The young have nibbled it, leaving the skull intact on this occasion. Probably they maybe just didn't want the head, and then maybe the flies and the maggots did the business. Anyway, it's now got blown off the side of the nest, and I picked it up underneath the nest. So this has been in the talons and the beak of young goshawks. I love that.
Maybe our goshawk.
Maybe even our goshawk. That's another thing we've got coming up today. We've got a slow-mo image of you releasing the goshawk.
Slow-mo goshawk. Oh, yeah. Slow-mo poodle. Forget about that. I think slow-mo goshawk.
Slow-mo goshawk. Yes. Anyway, what about that? I'm loving the fact that this is a skull with history. If skulls could talk, eh? If skulls could talk. Oh, I'll tell you a story.
Okay, we need to move on. Jesus. There's lots of people putting in their answers already, though.
Oh, really? What for that?
For all of them.
I thought that
We've got a few.
Oh, I see. For skulls as well as the bird.
Yeah, for skulls.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's come back to that at the end. Should we go to our first guest?
Let's.
Britain's most popular animal is not the goshawk. It might be around here. Might be around here. But anyway, not.
I have a soft spot for what's coming though.
Yes, I think we all do. Britain's most popular animal is the one and only hedgehog. But very sadly, we know our hedgehogs are in big trouble. 97% decline in some areas. And again, when I was a kid, we'd find hedgehogs on our way when we were walking to school. They were in all of our gardens. They were just part and parcel of our life. And we took them for granted, if I'm very honest with you. We never imagined a day when you'd move to a house here. We've been here for 12 years, never seen a hedgehog.
No.
In the garden, on the trap cameras, there are just no hedgehogs here, which is incredibly sad. But if there's one person who singularly, because a lot of people work hard to look after hedgehogs, but if there's one person who has singularly become a hedgehog champion, it is, of course, Hedgehog Hugh Warwick. And he joins us live now. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Megan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I've a new T-shirt. Well, I've decided to dig out the hedgehog T-shirt. Here we go. The cleverness of this one. My wonderful friend Stig designed it. Little hedgehog with the dreaming spires of Oxford. Hedgehogs. Wherever I go, the hedgehog goes, and it remains. Despite the best efforts on the part of my family and my wife in particular to make me more normal, it's just not seeming to happen at the moment. But no, the hedgehog thing is growing and growing as an idea. And you two have been so instrumental in helping to promote the petition I've been running on change.org. And every time I come on the club, there's another few thousand people sign up to the petition. And it's just a small petition asking for all new developers to put holes in the fences when they do a new build, 13-centimetre holes. It's the essence of the Hedgehog Street campaign that we do. And I have just been astounded by what's happened in the last 5 days. The numbers have gone up 140,000. The petition now stands at 947,690.
Wow.
We are seriously at risk of hitting 1 million signatures of people who care enough about the hedgehogs to go to www.change.org/saveourhedgehogs. And it's just astounding. It really, really thrills me that we've got people out there who care that much just to take that first little step. But all of the other work which goes on, so much other work going on. And I'm hoping that you can cover in more detail later some of the work that's coming from Dorset. But I was lucky enough to get pushed a piece out to a few of the newspapers at the beginning of this week. I don't know if you saw it, about the ghost hedgehogs. And I even made my own. There we go. I must thank my neighbour who did the actual soaring, because it was pointed out to me that if I did it, it would be rubbish. So Hugh, the other Hugh down the street, did the soaring, and I managed to paint it, and even that I managed to cock up. But the idea of the ghost hedgehog is very simple. It was the Dorset Mammal Group who came up with this idea. There was one village in Dorset which had 21 hedgehogs killed on its roads last summer. And it was just, this is such a ridiculous waste of life. There's so many other threats that the hedgehogs face. Let's deal with this one. And so the idea is you make a small white wooden hedgehog. And when you find a hedgehog corpse, you put it up beside the road. It has to be on private property, and you have to have the permission of the owner, because you mustn't cause distraction and things. But you do that as a reminder that lives have been lost here. And then I posted this on social media, and the amazing writer Rob McFarlane, who is just one of my favorite writers at the moment, he just said, well, why don't we do this for all of the stuff that's missing? Leave these messages out there, because actually we need constant reminders of what's missing. We can become immune to it. With the whole idea of shifting baselines, we're used to what we used to remember, and we haven't really noticed how degraded our wider landscape has become. And so I think these messages are really, really important. And just this morning, dropping my son off on his way to school, I noticed a missing poster on the side of a lamppost. And a missing pets type poster. And it was such a fantastic idea. Did a double take, and it was like, oh my goodness, that's a hedgehog. Who's missing a hedgehog? No. And it was just a message. It was a message out saying these hedgehogs are missing, but it was a way of attracting that attention back to the subject. It can be things like the Living Planet report, which came out yesterday, which reveal the most horrendous sort of statistics, 68% decline in all vertebrate life in the last 50 years, in my lifetime. There has been, we've lost over 2/3 of everything that's out there. That can be shocking. That can be such an enormous thing. It almost wipes out your ability to understand it. But when you bring it back to an animal that we love and we care about, like the hedgehog, then it can be much easier to make that relationship, make that point of understanding. You haven't seen hedgehogs where you are. I live in the most wonderfully hedgehog-rich, potentially, garden, backing onto a park, surrounded by people whose fences are as degraded as my fences are, or with holes in them. It's very accessible. I haven't seen a hedgehog in my garden for 7 years.
It's not right, is it? It's just like they should be here. I mean, we're in the middle of a new forest.
Yeah.
But like, if they're not here, then where are they?
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. I mean, it's really enlightening that your petition has done so
remarkable.
well. It's incredible. People really connect with hedgehogs. People really care about them. So I'm sure it's going to hit 1 million, isn't it? It's going to happen.
I really didn't think it was going to make it to 900,000, and then suddenly there was an absolute whoosh. I should say there was a spike in people signing it, which is just that's Springwatch level. That one. I'm sorry, I should really help myself to that. But it was just a moment, and it was so delightful because it was coinciding with the ghost hedgehog stories, and obviously the new hedgehog book coming out. But it was just this wave of evidence of caring. And I think sometimes you can maybe feel a little bit like actually you're fighting on your own. I don't know whether you've ever felt that. I mean, you have such an audience, maybe you don't worry about that. But sometimes I do, and I'm in my shed and I do worry about that. But then you get this sort of affirmation of people who too care for something as much as you do, who have made the holes in the fences, who have made their gardens hedgehog friendly, have signed up on the Hedgehog Street campaign, all of these things, and beginning to make those steps. And each one of those steps, at some point, they cross a line. This is what I like to think. At some point, you go from just liking and caring about stuff, and then you cross this line because you've recognized you love things. And then you really, truly start fighting for it. At the moment, it's so easy. You do a little bit, and then that's enough. But no, we need the fight to really begin. Extinction Rebellion's been on the streets of London all the last week and a half. My wife's been down there filming it. And this level of energy, this level of action is absolutely crucial. And it's great that you've got Dominic Dyer coming along again, because he embodies this level of enthusiasm and passion to campaign to try and help turn back the figures that we see from the Living Planet report.
Yeah, staggering stuff. Hugh, just in case people aren't aware of Hedgehog Street, in a nutshell, just tell us what Hedgehog Street is about.
Absolutely. So the campaign is run by the People's Trust for Endangered Species and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. And it's based around the very simple thing that you can make your garden amazingly good for wildlife, but be seduced by all these things that fly and forget that actually there's a whole bunch, the most important stuff, can't fly. And as much as the RSPB tries to lay claim to the hedgehog, it's not a bird. And so the hedgehogs can't get in unless you've made your hole. So you make your hole in the fence and you make your garden hedgehog friendly. You talk to your neighbours, obviously, but your neighbours then talk to their neighbours, and their neighbours talk to their neighbours, and you spread hedgehog love down the street. You create a hedgehog friendly street. You spread it wider than that. The great thing about the Hedgehog Street is that it then lends itself very neatly to the idea of the Hedgehog Street Party. The Hedgehog Street Party, obviously, when we have reached a point when more than 6 people can gather, you have your Hedgehog Street Party. And this means that you get hedgehog bunting, which is a thing, and lots of cake. All of these things lead to great happiness on my part and many other people's parts. So, the Hedgehog Street campaign is a simple call to not just rely on your garden being big enough for hedgehogs. We know that male hedgehogs will easily cover 2 kilometers a night, female hedgehogs a kilometer on average, that they have a home range. They don't have a territory they defend, but they have a home range which they will share, albeit grumpily quite often. But that can be 30 hectares for males, 10 hectares for females. And a viable population of hedgehogs needs nearly a square kilometre of really good habitat. And that will be suburbia, really good suburban habitat. And so this is why we need to break down that fragmentation, the fragmentation which is absolutely rife throughout our landscape, whether it's the fragmentation caused by busy roads, fences, canals. HS2, probably the biggest fragmentation happening to our countryside at the moment. All of these things fragmented. So we need to overcome that fragmentation to join up the pockets of goodness that are left, because there are pockets of goodness. You've got a pocket of goodness. I garden's a pocket of goodness. We've got goodness. We just need to join them up, because without that, each of these islands is obviously just on its own, and it isn't enough to support a viable population of hedgehogs or much else.
My brother is 11 years old, and something that I've been encouraging him to do is to go around the street and post letters into people's doors and just say, what do you think about a hedgehog highway? Do you mind if I put one in? And for him, he's not been to like a protest or an Extinction Rebellion thing. I mean, don't worry, I'm on the case. He will come, but he hasn't at this point yet. So for him, that is quite rebellious. That is his way of being active in his environment. So that's a great thing to do as a family. Put letters through doors, not talk to your neighbours, and say, hey, do you mind if I put a little hole in the fence? It's not big, and it's something that can be really positive. And as you say, then you get these connected streets, which is what makes the difference.
And I think that's really important is also, it can feel like, oh my God, well, there's Chris and Meghan speaking to millions. There's the people from Extinction Rebellion rebelling and being arrested. And I can't do either of those things, so I should probably not. With my wife, Zoe, the filmmaker Zoe Broughton, we made a film for the Quakers called Non-Violence for a Change, all about non-violent protest. And in that, we look at the whole spectrum of what protest looks like. And it starts with the people handing out a leaflet, the people putting a letter through the door. And without that, the person who takes a hammer to a warplane and disables it, and more power to their elbows, without the leafleting in the first instance, that doesn't work. You need to have this entire continuum. You need to have everything from the individuals picking up elastic bands on their way to their school and popping them along the central column of their scooters, because this is another thing which, when I talk in primary schools, kids end up doing this because hedgehogs will get caught in these elastic bands. They'll collect all the ones they see dropped by the posties, and they will, you'll have competitions who gets the highest stack of elastic bands. These small acts are stepping stones. They're the beginning of a process which will lead to great and fundamental change. I really, really hope. And if we didn't hope that would be the case, you almost feel like giving up. So you've got to remain optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And all the optimism is in here, really. This is your new book, the Hedgehog book, very aptly named, I have to say.
Yeah. What's it about?
Frogs.
Here, we're running out of time. Go on. You've got a minute to sell your book. Off you go. A minute starts now.
Okay, so the book is available from Graphegg, the publishers, and they will give £1 to the British Hedgehog Preservation Society for every copy they sell. You can buy it from your local bookshop. If you go to Wild Sounds, they have been selling it at a really decent discount, and that is in itself a very wonderful and lovely thing. I will give a shout out to Kenilworth Books, a fantastic local bookshop just south of Birmingham, north of Oxford, and they do amazing work with wildlife authors. They get people in to come and talk when we're allowed to do that sort of thing. Find your local bookshop. If you really can't find your local bookshop, well, there's always the people who don't pay their tax. But maybe go to the local bookshop or the publishers. And it's a book about hedgehogs, and it's full of pretty pictures, and it's a very...
Okay, that's it. That's your minute. That's your minute. And here we are.
And for hedgehogs.
There we go.
Look at that.
For the love of hedgehogs, put in a hedgehog highway.
It's a great little book because it's good because it encompasses everything. It's an introduction to the animal. It explains the plights. It's got the art. It's got the history. It's got the culture, and also it's got the science too, all in one small volume.
Oh, what more could you want?
What more could you want? It's really, really. We wouldn't just say that because you're on either. You know what we're like. Hugh. Brutally honest, but it is. It's a great book. Hugh, thanks so much. Oh, one more thing before you go. Come on, we've got to be thinking about the million. Where do people go to sign your petition if they haven't done it?
Change.org, and it's www.change.org/Save Our Hedgehogs. And it's the only hedgehog petition up there, which is currently at nearly 950,000. You can't miss it. It's splashed across social media, and Hedgehog Hugh is my what's it called, a tag, a handle, a name or something on
handle.
Whatever. Hedgehog Hugh. It's got a lot of H's, and I'm out there. So follow that, and you will be reminded repeatedly to sign and to share. Thank you both for all you do. It's wonderful to be back.
Thank you, Hugh. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Oh,
top bloke. So good,
great.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Great.
Focused passion, expert at it, as well. Knows a lot about hedgehogs. Aside from that, we didn't get into all of his hedgehog knowledge this morning, but Hugh's a top bloke. And I mean, look, hats off. 950,000 signatures.
An achievement,
That's an astonishing achievement. Yeah. Absolutely astonishing. Imagine if we do get to the million. 1 million people in the UK saying that they want new developments to have holes in the fences. It's a hole in a fence.
Come on.
We're not asking for a fun
material.
fair in everyone's back garden.
You're saving material. You're saving money.
We're not saying every time you buy a house you get a free Ferrari. We're just always saying is you have a hole in the fence.
You're going to start that petition, aren't you?
I could start that one. But the 1950s racing Ferrari.
All right.
But there weren't that enough. There weren't many to go around. The key thing is that. But we're just asking for a hole in the fence.
I know.
We're actually asking for an absence of something. We're not asking for something extra. We're asking for something less. Just a hole in the fence. Come on. That's got to be good, hasn't it? And then do you know what the next thing will be? When that happens, million signatures. And some developers are on board. Let's be clear. Some developers are on board already who's had success with some quite major developers, to be quite honest with you. So some are on board. When they're all on board, next we move to Swift bricks.
Yep.
Mandatory. In new builds, you've got to have Swift bricks up in there. Maybe house sparrow bricks.
Yep.
You can get bee bricks. You can get all sorts of. You can't get goshawk bricks. They don't nest in buildings. Very
no,
sadly.
That would be cool. You get white stalk. White stalk things above your house.
On your chimney.
On your white stalk chimneys.
That's a few years ahead, that one.
Yeah, that's...
when the stalk project takes off.
Maybe when I'm like 80, I'll start campaigning for that.
Can you imagine that? Imagine if you get to the point where you live... Okay, here's the thing. When I was a kid, we never thought that we would see goshawks in our neighbourhood, peregrine falcons and red kites flying overhead, ospreys and white-tailed eagles being reintroduced to the south of England. That was not on the cards, right?
No.
But imagine, when you grow up, if you've got, what's on the cards is storks nesting on your house. Could happen.
That'd be cool.
Could happen.
That would be pretty cool.
Could happen.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what could a hedgehog.
Just before we move on, we move on to the next piece. Look, here's our little certificate. Michaela, if you were watching last week here, Michaela has adopted an African penguin called Meg Chris. On our behalf.
It's a great name.
As a gift. Yeah. The only thing is it says reason for admission underweight.
Ooh. Well, I hope it's okay.
Well, it's looking all right there,
it's there, it's getting all the love that it needs.
There we are. And you can find out more about these penguins if you'd like to from SANCCOB, SANCCOB.
It's a great place. It's where Michaela was talking about last week in Cape Town.
Yeah.
So African penguins.
SANCCOB. Oh, there we are. Look, there's the address there. SANCCOB.co.za. That's at the bottom of that there. So if you'd like to find out more about it. Thanks for that, Michaela. We're very flattered.
We've got our own penguin.
That we've now got a fat penguin in... no, it's much better than it being a thin penguin. It's got our own fat penguin down in South Africa there. Looking actually quite chill.
Quite idyllic.
Yeah, look, he's looking
quite like
he or she, is looking quite happy really.
Yeah, just
even a little bit smug, one might say. Shall we move on?
Smug penguins. Anyway. Next up, we have the fantastic Indy Greene. Indy has been out filming for us, and he's put together, such a beautiful film for us to show you. So I think it's just nice to sit back and relax with this one. It's a bit mindfulness moment, but it's lots of knowledge.
About his patch, isn't it?
About Sherwood Forest and a little bit about ancient woodland. So have a look at this.
Dawn in Sherwood Forest. As the sun's warming rays penetrate through the trees, this magical forest slowly spins into life. Walking amongst the stunning ancient oaks makes you feel small in the best possible way. The beauty of their form attracts a sleepy tawny owl. From this to this, astounding. Some of the forest trees simply look out of this world. Twister may have lost its inner strength, but is still fighting fit. The aptly named Medusa, snake-like branches still rising from its base. Of course, Sherwood Forest is home to many more ancient oaks, a whopping 997, the largest collection in Western Europe. The forest is home to a unique array of bird species, including the lesser-spotted woodpecker, the redstart, and the lovely marsh tit. Many rare invertebrates depend on decaying wood to survive, For this reason, fallen oaks are left to naturally decay. The dead wood inside of a tree supports hundreds of species of invertebrates. It's always important to look down as well as up whilst walking through a forest. All of these colourful characters are all part of the forest's ecosystem. Eyes should be forever peeled. Great efforts have been made to preserve some of the more fragile trees in the forest. Metal bands have been secured around the girth of the trees, a metal tree hugger. A good way to appreciate a forest is to lie down, look up to the canopy of trees, and listen. As the evening draws in, the nightjar's churring begins. Through their very existence over centuries, ancient woodlands have developed a rich species of plants, fungi, and insects. They offer unique habitats, complex biodiversity formed over hundreds of years. Ancient woodlands are of course irreplaceable. It is up to us whether we choose to preserve them.
Excellent stuff.
It's beautiful.
Indy's got
really
it's versatile.
Shot.
Yeah.
You know, really well put together. Great little film.
Yeah.
Really good.
And the other thing about Indy, although he's a relatively young person, well, he's young compared to us. Yeah, he's young. Okay, he's not relatively young. He's a young person. He's very versatile in his thinking, isn't he? So he's sort of into his birds, because he's made films about just going out and looking for woodpeckers.
Yeah.
And then he did his vulture stuff, and there was a conservation thing behind that. We were all very worried about that vulture because of where
he does
it was
a lot.
living.
He's still going out looking, seeing it and everything.
He's doing that. But then he did the verges, local conservation.
Yeah.
And now he's doing mindfulness as well. He's got a great breadth of not only interest, but the fact that he turns that interest into something tangible, like these films.
Yeah.
Star, Indy Greene. Thank you very much, Indy. Thanks very much. Keep it coming.
Yeah,
We're very privileged to be a platform for your work, actually, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. I'm sure all of our viewers do the same. Yeah. Okay.
I hope you're all calm and
brace yourselves.
Centered.
Brace yourself.
As we go on to the soapbox.
Well, this week's soapbox is there's no choice about what it's going to be. It's about the badger cull, which has been running since 2013. It's caused no end of pain and aggravation and frustration and disappointment and anger in the humans. Unfortunately, that pales into insignificance with the pain, anguish that has been suffered by the badgers that have been culled. It's been a travesty, to be quite honest with you, from the outset. It's been divisive. It's divided farmers from conservationists. It's been obviously political. It's led to all sorts of political arguments, and we've followed it and we've fought it as hard as we possibly can. And unfortunately, it's still going on. We're very fortunate, however, though, that throughout the course of this cull, there has been one man. I mean, a lot of people, again, have been campaigning against the badger cull. Brian May, notably, of course. Rosie Woodruff, as a scientist who has taken a very scientific approach to revealing information about the interaction between badgers and cattle and the spread of bovine tuberculosis. So there are key players, but undoubtedly at their centre is a remarkable man, Dominic Dyer. And Dominic Dyer leads the Badger Trust at the moment. He has a long experience in terms of wildlife protection. He's a fantastic orator. There's no question of that at all. He's extraordinarily motivational. And when it comes to the badger cull, I'm tempted to say that no one knows more. Dominic has had his heart and his soul and every cell in his body over the last 7 years and longer, trying to stop this heinous cull. So we thought that before we have our say, we better hand over to the country's leading expert on this and let him tell you what's been happening this week, because I'm afraid it's bad news. And our badgers need us. We love those animals, and we shared our badgers on Springwatch this year. I've been photographing them. You've just been looking at some of the photographs that I've been taking recently of those animals. But here's Dominic to tell us about how the cull has actually been expanded this week. Dom.
In a major U-turn this week, the government have announced they're going to expand the cull with 11 new licences. That's 54 areas, geographically the size of Wales, stretching from Cornwall to Cumbria. 65 to 70,000 badgers to be killed this year. A total of 165,000 could be killed by the end of this year since 2013. We estimate the cost of the cull policy now is over £70 million. Large numbers of those badgers are being killed by a controlled shooting method that could take up to 5 minutes for them to die of blood loss and organ failure. We have no evidence that most badgers spread TB to cattle. We have lots of evidence of industrial pollution of TB spreading from cows into wildlife, into domestic animals. And the farming industry are not dealing with the problem, and the government are letting them get away with it. We're killing badgers for nothing. This is a tragic case of ecological vandalism on an unprecedented scale. And we could be pushing badgers to the verge of local extinction in areas of the country where they've lived since the Ice Age. We had the complaint before the Berne Convention, a treaty the British government is signed up to for protection of badgers in Britain, where we have over 25% of Europe's population. I'm pleased to see the Labour opposition this week have come in to support that complaint, both with the Secretary of State, George Eustace, but also with the Berne Secretariat as well. And it will be discussed within Berne next week. But it's a critical time for our poor badgers. We cannot keep destroying badgers to protect declining farming industry in this country. We have to change. We can get on top of bovine TB, but that will be as a result of better TB testing, biosecurity and movement controls, getting on top of the use of slurry, where we know that TB can survive for over 2 weeks. And let's get serious about badger vaccination. We know it works. We know it's far more cost effective than culling. There are millions of young people in this country desperate for work that could be put into badger projects up and down the country to help farmers and landowners to vaccinate their badgers. Why don't we just get on with it? And then, of course, we do have cattle vaccination trials now, but it's taken too long. The government needs to move that forward. Vaccinate cattle, vaccinate badgers, get serious about biosecurity and cattle control movements, and improve the TB testing. That's better for taxpayers, better for farmers, and better for the future of our poor badgers.
Thanks, Dom. Hitting the nail very, firmly on the head there.
Unbelievable, absolutely.
Oh,
the
it's
fact
shameful.
that is going on
It's
in the country, it's just, the science is obvious.
Yeah.
It's blatant. There is no ambiguity about the fact, that the cull has, next to no effect.
See, I've got something here. Here's an interesting thing. Okay, so I'm just going to read you this piece that was in The Guardian. So the National Farmers Union here, Stuart Roberts, who's the spokesperson on behalf of the NFU, has said that they've always supported the government's 25-year eradication strategy, which provides farmers with a lifeline for tackling bovine TB, using all available measures to tackle this horrendous disease, including strengthening cattle movements, enhanced biosecurity and controlling the disease in wildlife. So then it goes on to say, the chief vet has said that proactive badger culling is currently the best available option to tackle this disease. There's clear evidence that badger culling is working. The thing is, right, in those peer-reviewed papers by the National Farmers Union, the 66% reduction that they measured the following year by a 130% increase in BTB. But they don't like to tell you that bit, do they? The NFU don't like that science, which suits them. In the first year, there was a 66% decline. They don't like the fact that the following year was a 130% increase. We don't hear them talking about that, without the way that the badger cull isn't working. We don't hear them talking about when the badgers are culled. This is the most absurd. When the badgers are shot, you would test it to see whether they were carrying bovine tuberculosis, and therefore whether they had died, albeit, necessarily in some people's eyes. Then we would have an idea of, which parts of the badger population were carrying bovine tuberculosis, whether those that were being had it, and therefore it warranted killing them in some people's minds. But no.
We don't do that.
They're not tested. We don't even know of all of these up to 70. Technical issues.
Sorry, everyone. Internet suddenly went down pretty quick, so we've had to switch devices and
We're on Megan's phone.
Come back again.
I kind of like the fact that we use such low technology. I don't like it when it fails like that, though. So I'm sorry about that sort of lack of professionalism. We can. But it wasn't our fault. The internet just went down. Anyway,
we live in the middle of a black hole.
Look, I was in the middle of a rant, and I was saying that basically those animals which are killed, the badgers which are killed, are not tested for BTB. I mean, come on. That's day one, isn't it? You would test to see whether the animals you were culling are actually carrying the disease you're trying to prevent. The other thing is, of course, that these animals are being shot at night when they're on the ground. And there's evidence to suggest that, the standards that have been set by DEFRA and Natural England in what they term as a humane method of killing are not being met. Because, when the shooters are shooting the badgers, some of those animals are not killed instantaneously. They're struggling away into the bushes, into the woods, and they're taking more than 5 minutes to die. Well,
that's just horrendous.
Just horrendous.
There's nothing.
Badgers are being found in the countryside with gunshot wounds that haven't been recovered, and other animals are shot and and left in extraordinary pain.
Excuse. And the money.
£70 million worth of taxpayers' money.
And it's more expensive, isn't it? I mean, badger cull is something, of course, I'm hugely passionate about, but all the details, there's so much that goes into it. But isn't it that it's more expensive to actually cull them? Massively more expensive than it would be to vaccinate or to test.
Yes, well, the two things that need to be happening, and this is what the government, the reason why we're particularly angry now is that the government threw us a lifeline in the spring when they said that they were going to improve biosecurity, i.e. cattle-to-cattle transmission of bovine tuberculosis. They were going to rapidly increase the speed that we look at a cattle vaccine, and make sure that was put into play, and that we would expand badger vaccination. And now some of the areas where they're set to start culling include areas where badgers have been vaccinated. So we know for a fact that those badgers are going to be shot that are harmless. They're going to be shooting
all that effort that goes into vaccinating. And there is a lot, there's a lot of people that I follow on Twitter that are always out trying to campaign against the badger cull and vaccinate these animals, and they're just going to be shot anyway. It's absolutely ridiculous. What a waste of taxpayers' money. What a waste of conservation. A waste of everything. What is
crazy?
What are people thinking?
Oxfordshire, Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, and Derbyshire. And in Derbyshire, they've had one of the most effective, well put together. Derbyshire Wildlife Trust have been vaccinating the badgers there. Been doing fantastic work with farmers, liaising with them effectively to vaccinate those badgers. And now it's become part of one of the cull zones. I mean, what on earth, honestly?
What an embarrassment. The UK conservation stuff at the moment is just an absolute shambles.
I'm afraid that level that it is. Okay, bottom line, what can we do about it then? Because we've all been fighting really hard. What can we do about it? Well, firstly, share your concerns on social media. Remember, shout above the noise. Make a noise politely. There's no need to be offensive about it at all. Just be kind to everyone. But exercise your voice to complain about the badger cull. Secondly, of course, you voted for them, whoever they are. Write to your MPs and say that this is giving you ongoing concern. And if you need any information to shape and structure your letter, then obviously the Badger Trust is one of the places you can go for that. Also support, if you're able to, those vaccination schemes. We mentioned Derbyshire Wildlife Trust. They're not the only people that are doing vaccinating around the country. If you're feeling really like you want to support that, of course, don't just give them money or social media support. Actually do something. Volunteer. Go out and learn the trade of how you vaccinate badgers. And
lots of people have been doing that recently. I've seen lots of people have been getting trained. It's a fantastic thing to do. Spend time out in the countryside and protecting a species that we all love and is in serious trouble.
I don't know. Not a great week on that account. Anyway, shall we move on to something positive now? Because that's what we need to do. Stephanie West works at the Natural History Museum in the Angela Marmont Centre and Marmont. Angela Marmont Centre. And there, she trains people in identifying animals and developing their skills when it comes to biodiversity, amongst other things. And she's made some film for us before. She contacted us a little while back and said, would you be interested in this brilliant butterflies project that's run in conjunction with the London Wildlife Trust and Butterfly Conservation? And we said yes. And do you know what? I hadn't heard of it. In fact, it started last year, I think. South of Croydon in London, there are some chalk grasslands. And chalk grasslands are incredibly rare habitat. You only find chalk grasslands in Northern Europe. And in the UK, we're fortunate to have, I think, probably more than anywhere else in Europe, in area when you think of the downland and so forth. But of course, in the wake of the Second World War, when agricultural intensification took off, most of those chalk grasslands were ploughed up and turned into arable fields. Only those on the sort of steep slopes or protected areas survived. And they have a very particular flora and fauna. Anyway, here to start this little film that Steph has instigated is Anna. From the London Wildlife Trust to tell us all about the brilliant Butterflies project. And it's good news, an antidote to all of that bad news that we're going on about the badgers. Take it away, Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm the Nature Reserves Officer on the Brilliant Butterflies project. It's a partnership project between London Wildlife Trust, Butterfly Conservation and the Natural History Museum, supported by players of the People's Postcode Lottery. I'm here today on one of the 6 chalk grassland nature reserves where I spend a lot of time working with groups of local volunteers to restore these valuable habitats. Just 1 square metre of chalk grassland can have up to 40 different species, so every metre really does count. As well as restoring the chalk grassland, we're also creating new habitats, engaging with local people, and leading on groundbreaking scientific research. My fantastic colleagues at the Natural History Museum are working on pioneering environmental or eDNA technology. They're going to tell you a bit more about that in a minute. We've also been working alongside butterfly conservation across Croydon and Bromley, right in the heart of urban communities, to build butterfly banks. These mini chalky habitat islands help to develop a living landscape and provide the perfect place for butterflies and other insects to thrive and be enjoyed by everyone.
Hi Chris, hi Megan, hi everyone. So you've just been introduced to the Brilliant Butterflies project, which we're working with London Wildlife Trust and Butterfly Conservation on. And Katie and I are finally out on field work after a season of missing out on most of what we should have been doing this year. But we're out today for the first day of our field work season. And we're on some of the London Wildlife Trust reserves this week, setting up a few traps. So Katie's just going to introduce you to what we're doing today.
So yeah, we've got our two different types of traps here. So here is a Malaise trap, which is essentially like a tent which collects flying invertebrates. So we put it in line with a sort of invertebrate flight path, and then the invertebrates will fly sort of up into the side of the net, and then they'll go, because they have a tendency to fly upwards. They'll fly upwards into the collection pot, which has got 100% ethanol in, which we're then using for molecular grade identification, which we'll explain further later. And then we've also got some pitfall traps, which you can see they're in a little triangle shape here. Essentially, it's just a little cup in the ground, like this, and it sort of is level with the ground, so all of the ground-dwelling invertebrates will then sort of fall into the collection pot. And we're also taking some soil samples as well, which we take and then we'll use for DNA analysis, and we put them in these little tubes here, and we use spatulas to collect them as well.
So next week we'll come back and we'll collect all these traps up, and then we'll take everything that we've caught back to the museum and to our laboratories. What we're doing there is trying a new pioneering way of undertaking something called eDNA, which you might have heard of before for single species. But what we're trying to do here is see if we can get the complete species list from everything we're collecting in the traps all in one go. The problem with doing this in the traditional way of going through and by hand identifying every single insect in a collecting trap like this is it can take a very long time and potentially be very expensive, and particularly for conservation sites and things. It means it doesn't often happen, and invertebrates often are missed in conservation research and conservation practice as well. So what we're hoping to create through the Brilliant Butterflies project is a new way of quickly and rapidly assessing invertebrate populations, and hopefully that might be something which will be of use to conservation research in the future.
Fantastic new science. Well, I say new science, but well, it is relatively new science. Of course, the advent of our ability to analyse DNA to the extent that we can identify species with tiny fragments of it. Metagenomics, they call it. Metagenomics. Cool. Someone came here once, actually. They just behind us here. They dug a hole in the garden, that patch where those wildflowers are at the moment. Took a little soil sample away, and then threw it into a machine. I'll simplify this thing, threw it into a machine like that, and then probably put it in very gently actually,
chucking soil,
put it into a machine, and then it identified about 400 different species of bacteria that were living in the soil in that patch instantaneously. Nothing under the microscope, no one looking down there trying to tell the difference between different bacteria. Just fragments of their DNA allowed them to tell me exactly what was in that patch. They did another one over there, and because the front of the house at some stage had been used as the farmyard where all the cattle had been standing in front of the house going back a long time, they found a different component of bacteria just between here and there, about 15 metres apart. So that sampling technique that Steph was telling us about there, quick, affordable, would tell us, instantaneously about the biodiversity of those communities and better allow us to conserve them. And of course, the project of a whole is what Hugh was talking about, fragmentation. We've got all these little fragments of habitat around the south side of London on that chalk grassland. And by building those new patches and building them into schools, community areas, other nature reserves, then hopefully we'll build a web of connectivity between those fragmented habitats and those wonderful species will be able to move between them. So top work. People's Postcode Lottery. People's Postcode Lottery come up with £1 million. Yeah, good work. So that's people playing the lottery. That's where the money's come from. And one last thing, just before we move on, the wart biter cricket. You saw a photograph there of that wart biter cricket. Well, they're called wart biters because they've got very powerful jaws, and it was said that they have the capacity to bite a wart off of a man's finger, or a woman's finger for that matter. So quite a few years ago now, about 25 years ago, you know what's coming, but it's true.
Oh no, you didn't try it.
Listen.
No, you did, didn't you?
They were reintroducing wart biter crickets to this site, and we thought, we'll make a film about this. Good conservation story. But what we'll also do is to see if the name, lives up to its billing. So we've got the wart biter crickets.
You don't have warts.
No, I know I don't have warts. And in fact, we found it very hard to find anyone who does have warts because they're so eminently treatable now. If you get a wart, you treat it, it goes away. Well, in the old days, of course, when they were named wart biter crickets, people got warts and couldn't get rid of them. Anyway, eventually, after very, very long search, we found a man with a wart on his finger.
What were you doing? How did you search for that?
I know it's pre.
What do you put in? Google.
No, it was pre-Google.
Adverts.
No, this was
an advert in the local newspaper.
This was in the 90s. This was pre-Google and the social media.
Yeah, so in the yellow papers. Hello, anyone with a wart on their fingers want to get their fingers nibbled by a cricket?
Listen, whatever. We found a man. Right, this is right. We found a man who had a wart on his finger, who also was prepared to be filmed. Right, and he joined us on a nature reserve, and I think it was in Kent. And he came down, and without a word of a lie, right, this is true. I held the wart biter cricket up to the wart on his finger, and they're relatively relatively nibbly, right? And it kind of sort of nibbled a little bit at the wart on his finger, right? It nibbled at it, right? But it didn't bite it off. So I think they're misnamed, Steph.
So they're kind of like wart nibbling crickets.
They should be called wart nibblers. Wart nibblers. Paul Brock.
But is it specifically warts? Or it would nibble anything, surely.
I know, but
you
warts
just
are
get like a
toughened skin, aren't they?
They're
toughened. They'd be harder to bite off than anything else. So that's how.
If you're eating your breakfast, I'm very sorry.
No, it's a true story. It's a film that we made for the BBC.
Of course it did.
So good. Those were the days. Those were the days when we had, orthopterans nibbling the warts of members of the British public. Oh, that's what you pay your licence fee for.
And there's the phrase that you always come out and sing. God. Anyway,
moving on.
From some curious science to some, pretty good conservation initiatives. So in the news, you may have seen recently, there has been a lot of talk. There's been talk about this for a long time, since the 1860s, I found out.
Really?
Yeah, wow. It's been a long conversation about this particular reintroduction, but it hit the news recently on August the 6th, 2020, when beavers were allowed to remain in the River Otter. River Otter. River Otter beavers. So beavers were allowed to remain. They were deemed by the government that they were, going to be really beneficial for that environment, promoting biodiversity, flooding and drought too. So it was a huge success. But there's been a lot of work going into beaver reintroduction recently. A lot of work, and the pioneer of that is Derek Gow. He's amazing. He's had the most amazing life, and he's kind of the pioneer of reintroductions in the UK. He's been involved in so much. You've got water voles.
He was Mr. Water Vole for a long time.
Yeah, he was releasing like 25,000 of them a year. Amazing. He's been involved in the White Stork project. He's now looking at wildcats. But beavers are something that are very close to his heart. He's been working with him for a long time. He lives on the border of Cornwall and Devon, where he has this 300-acre farm, and he has been kind of taking in beavers into these pens and trying to introduce them for a really long time. And I have to say, he has just written the most fantastic book. So this is called Bringing Back the Beaver. It's got all the information you could ever want about beavers and their reintroduction and their value to the UK countryside in here. I had the pleasure of reading this book over the weekend and interviewing Derek himself a couple of days ago. It was released yesterday, so you can find that interview over on the Beaver Trust and also on Chelsea Green, which is the publishing site. It was a really great chat, so hopefully you're able to watch it. And it is an absolutely fantastic book. And one thing I wanted to read, which is on that. It's all right. It's a great. You've got to read this.
No,
you haven't read it yet. So this is just a clip from George Monbiot, who's a fantastic writer, writes for The Guardian about the book, and I thought it sums it up really well. So bringing back the beaver is a hilarious, eccentric and magnificent account of the struggle against bureaucracy, pig-headedness and sheer human irrationality in order to reintroduce a species critical for the health of our ecosystem. Derek Dow has done more to restore this missing fauna than anyone else in Britain. This is his astonishing story of what it takes. It is funny, it is honest, it is informative, it is an absolute amazing book. It's a must-have book, actually. And I found out something.
It's a must-have book for me.
But you got to get your own.
All right, okay.
But I found out something that I never knew about beavers. Never knew about them, and I found, honestly, I was absolutely gripped.
Go on.
Right, so this is, goes to show how little we know about these animals, and how much more we have left to understand. And so when obviously you got infant mortality, all species, a certain percentage of them will unfortunately pass away after birth when they're young. Do you know what the adult beavers do? They actually bury their young in their burrow, and they really take a lot of care in burying their young, and the females portray this really interesting behavior.
Yeah, but that's not because they're being sentimental about
them. We don't know.
That's because they don't want the
Well, yes, because they don't have evidence. But the way that they go about it, there's some really interesting behaviour in the way in which they bury them.
Mm.
It's done very, very carefully, and it's the way in which they do it.
But I think they're burying them because when they begin to decay, they don't want the risk of infection with the other young.
Well, yes, but the way they go about doing it, you have to read the book.
Okay, I'll read the book.
You've got to read the book to understand.
Because I think we people have found evidence in the past that when a badger dies underground, they will sort of entomb it in that part of the set, and then the other badgers don't use it.
Yeah, but I think this is just.
Would you want to sleep alongside a decomposing badger?
No.
Or beaver?
No.
Right, I think that's what.
No, but.
No, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's fascinating stuff. I'll read the book.
Read the book, and you'll see the science behind it. It's really interesting. No one knew about this before, but of course, it's a really important topic at the moment. Please get this book if you can. It's really enlightening, and it highlights the importance of why we need beavers. We need them. They've been gone for 400 years from the UK.
The conversations that Derek and I have had over the years on the lethargy when it started being, reintroducing these animals and the hurdles that we're having to jump over. Even at this point now, Natural England have not said that we can reintroduce the beaver into England, and they're putting off the decision due to COVID now. They were meant to have made a decision already, but now they're holding back because of COVID. Oh, come on, everyone knows we need the beavers. It would help with flooding and everything. I'm ranting, sorry. Second soapbox.
Yeah, sorry. We'll do a beaver special, hopefully, at some point in the coming weeks.
Get Derek on.
We're going to get Derek on, hopefully. We haven't asked him yet. Derek, if you're watching, would you mind coming on? And we'll do a whole beaver, bonanza. We'll do a beaver bonanza for you. That will be good fun. Right. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, go on.
So we're going to go on to looking at some of your photos and your videos. Of course, that's one of our favourite things when you send them in to us. So let's have a look at this. So this is a photo that was sent to us by Christian Rogers. Can anyone help me identify this bird, please? It's sat on the rocks on an estuary at RSPB Conway.
Well, it's a wheatear.
Yeah.
And wheatears are migrants. So they migrate to and from Africa. And there are a range of different wheatear races. So although it's a wheatear, you have to look at the wheatears. And if you get yourself a field guide, you can look at the wheatear page and you'll see that they're all the same shape, but they come in a different range of tones and colours. And that's because there's a sort of a geographical difference in the way that they look. And we get, for instance, Greenland wheatears, and these are wheatears. Guess where they come from?
Australia.
Yeah, Australia. And they come back through the UK, and they're a bit larger because they're obviously breeding further north, so they need to be bulked up a little bit. And so you get the Greenland wheatears. And now they like coming to beaches. Beaches is a good place to see migrant wheatears because they like feeding on the sandhoppers in the seaweed. And you'll very often see them on. And the other reason they come to beaches is that they're a bird of open country. They're not a woodland species. You find them on grassland, short grassland, on heathland and moorland, and on sand dunes and things like that. So they're a bird of open country. So I guess the beaches around our coast are a sort of a habitat that they would feel comfortable in and of course find their food in. So yes, it's a wheatear on migration. They're one of the first migrants that we see coming through in the spring. Get wheatears in March going through, and then of course from any time from midsummer onwards we get them going back the other way. They've gone north and they fail to breed, and they'll start to move back south to Africa for winter. Yeah, and as a group of birds, they're a member of the chat family, so they're related to thrushes, which is why they're a bit like robin shaped, really, because they're a thrush too. And across Europe and Asia, there are actually, I don't know how many species of wheatear there are. Actually, I have to think about that. But there are lots. There are lots of species of wheatear. I would say somewhere between, well, definitely 30, maybe 40 species of wheatear, maybe more. They're very successful small pastel.
Yeah, beautiful bird though. That's a gorgeous shot. So this next photograph, this is from Storm Chaser AL. And this is quite interesting. This is. So to my RSPB and bird friends, can anyone help tell me what this is, please? Photograph in the field alongside a canal just outside Slimbridge. Yeah. Well, it's a different morph, isn't it?
It's a bouze variable, isn't it? It's the le bouze variable. Oui.
Why do you always have to follow it with oui? Whenever you do a French accent, you always have to go oui. Oui.
Incroyable.
Oui.
It's incroyable. So basically, it's a common buzzard, and they are very variable in their colour. So we typically see the brown ones, which are sort of a milk chocolate brown on the top, with a barred chest underneath, with generally a pale top to the chest, and that's not maybe your typical buzzard. But then there are two other very distinct morphs which are repeated. So there's a very pale morph, which is a creamy colour, and then there's an intermediate one. And those are patterns which are almost sort of fixed patterns. And obviously, as I said, the milk chocolate brown, the typical buzzards are the most common. But then you do get animals like this, which are sort of a mixture between all of them, or maybe they're molting between them. I doubt it, though. I think that bird is one of those sort of messed up ones. But yes, it's a common buzzard, and there is a lot of variation in that. Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah,
very cool.
I could go on and talk about why the variations there, but we let's move on.
Yes,
let's not do that. We did a piece about it on Autumn Watch once. So, and we spoke to Ian Newton, who is a. I'm starting.
You're going off again.
No, go on.
Go on. Right. Anyway, so last week, if you remember, we released a goshawk. It was an most amazing experience, and we had quite a few cameras on it, as you can imagine, because you want to make sure that you're going to get the shot. And in one, we did slow mo. Yeah. We like slow-mo, so we did slow-mo goshawk.
Go on, let's have a
Go
look at
on.
this. Oh, yeah. How's the tail?
That's amazing.
It goes.
Off it goes.
I wonder what it's doing now.
Oh, I wonder where it is.
Out there somewhere.
Hopefully it's doing well. Yeah, I mean, she did amazingly well. She's quite a small female, and she was the one that crashed into our window and was taken to the Hawk Conservancy Birds of Prey Hospital to recover, because she had a really bad toe.
Not due to the window crash.
Not due to the window crash. It was due to an injury that was done in the nest. This is one of this year's juveniles. So they unfortunately had to operate on it. They did save part of the toe, but the talon unfortunately was removed, and she was there to recover and recuperate. She had an outside ovary, and she was brought back here last week to be released, and it all went really well, actually.
Yeah, fantastic. So good to see that bird going back into the wild. Lots of hard work, top work from the
enjoyed that
National Bird of Prey Hospital, Cedric and the team up there. Of course, the Hawk Conservancy at Wayhill is open for business.
It's really great.
Linda went there this week.
Yeah.
Our neighbour went. She had an absolutely fantastic time. She said that the social distancing and all of the hygiene around COVID was absolutely top drawer.
Yeah.
But the staff were extraordinarily polite. She said they were amazing. There was not a grumpy person in the place. They were extremely helpful. And she saw 1.5 of the displays. And she said, she had to leave halfway through to go and collect her rabbit. Don't go there. But anyway, it's good. And she said, she had an absolutely, first time she'd been, she had an absolutely fantastic time. Can't wait to go back.
It's a lovely place.
So you can book online, and it is brilliant. She didn't get a chance to see the burrowing owls. They've got this burrowing owl walkthrough. Cool. You go in with the burrowing owls, and these little owls running around.
I like the vultures.
On the ground. Vultures.
Yeah, I like the vultures.
Good. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Good. So rivaling our goshawk slow-mo, we were sent in this. Pretty good. This is an osprey diving slow-mo. Let's have a little look at this.
Look at that. Look at the fish.
And the sound as well. The water.
We see that again.
Yeah,
maybe there's any chance you could run that one again, because that is so good. So good. Look at that. Initially you just see the sort of splash of white and silver, and then the bird just sort of peers out of it, and you can see its head and its feet and the fish.
So
that is an
cool.
amazing shot.
So cool.
Who did that?
Andy Howard on
Andy
Twitter.
Howard.
Yeah, in the Cairngorms.
That is something else.
Big BC apparently.
Wow,
so
we're
thank you
big
so much.
fans of
Andy, if you
Andy.
have any Osprey stuff, Andy, honestly, please do send them in. We'd love to see it because I mean, how did you do that?
That's
That
amazing.
is so cool.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
that is cool.
That is.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Fabian, come on. Okay, let's just see it one more time. I think it happens so quickly. You do need to rewatch it a few times. Right, here we go. Oh my goodness me, that is amazing.
All the bubbles, everything. I mean, it's just perfectly placed, isn't it? That
Right
camera.
in the middle.
Oh,
Honestly, Andy.
how did that? How?
I bet do you
I
imagine
love
what
that.
when Andy played that back and looked at it for the first time? I bet he was excited. Oh my goodness
I couldn't
me.
believe it, would you?
Oh,
You must
wow.
have maybe just cameras everywhere.
I don't know. Maybe Andy can tell us how he got it. That would
Yeah.
be interesting. Andy, if you are watching, then tell us how you got that shot, because we
Yeah.
think it's pretty
It's
sensational
pretty
to be
amazing.
quite that.
And any more stuff like that you've got, Osprey work, just anything, just
Oh, yeah. Okay.
great. Anyway, wildlife art. This is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is it?
Yeah.
Right. So, yes. Okay. Paul Harfleet has been doing some drawings, and we featured him on our SIBC. So basically, he chooses a bird, he illustrates it beautifully, and then he finds from his extraordinary wardrobe, as we found out,
amazing.
some matching attire, does a bit of makeup in a subtle way. We tried to do it,
Beautifully.
we were watching a few weeks ago, in a less subtle way. Well,
Yeah.
you were relatively subtle. I went big
yeah.
and bold.
You just had a black stripe across your face.
Yeah, no, so does
So
a
you
red back
do.
stripe.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you know.
Look, he's absolutely brilliant.
Done
He's
some
got some
feathering.
fantastically creative guy, actually.
Oh, he's
And
amazing.
anyway, so take a look at this, because here is a young person. Hold on.
Connie, aged 7.
Connie, where's Connie? There she is.
There's very creative.
Yeah. So Connie's looking great. I'm loving the shirt, actually.
It's a cool shirt. I wonder if you can imagine what she's doing there based on Paul Hartley.
She's doing Paul Hartley, but it's not a bird.
It's not a bird. It's not a bird.
Superb, Connie. Absolutely superb. I really like the shirt, actually.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine you wearing that.
Yeah, no, I do. I really like it. There it is.
There we go. It's an orange tip.
Orange tip butterfly.
Orange tip, male orange tip butterfly.
Connie,
Cool idea.
Connie does the orange
Shirts
tip.
with all the butterfly patterns on.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's cool. Very
Okay,
cool.
we are just about out of those.
Yes, we are. So we've got our mindfulness minute now. So this is from Jane Masters on Facebook. Every night is a party night with these starlings in my garden. So here is Jane and her starlings.
Lovely sound.
Yeah, I love stuff.
I could just listen to the sound, actually.
Yeah.
And the pictures are nice. All those young birds that are there. Presumably, if that's taken at this time of year, then that's a flock of young starlings. When I was a kid, that's the third time I've said it today. I used to go out into the fields. When I used to go out to the fields at this time of year, and all the young starlings would flock up, and they'd all be grey as opposed to the darker adults. So you could always see with their flocks of youngsters, and they'd be sort of rolling like this across the fields, all foraging. And then things like sparrowhawks and kestrels would sort of focus on them because they're a bit easier to catch than the adults, of course. But yeah, that's a lovely sound. I love the sound of all of those.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like a
Thank you very
symphony.
much. Thanks for that. Who sent that?
That was from Jane Masters on Facebook. So
Jane.
thank you very much,
Thanks
Jane.
very much. Okay, well,
What's the quiz?
we're coming towards the end, but I just want to say, I know we've been doing quite a few books this morning, but there is this one that's just come in the post. I'm so excited about
Yeah,
this.
you've been flicking through.
Yeah, look,
haven't you?
so now these are a new type of field guide. Look, I've already got the dragonflies here, and they do a bird, they do a bird version as well. But those have been out for a little while. The orchid one has just come through, and I'm telling you, this is pretty special. Sean Cole and Mike Waller. They're published by WildGUIDES in conjunction with the Botanical Society of Britain and Ireland. And what I like about them, these are, they've got beautiful illustrations here. and they've got detailed, information
detailed,
about the structure of the flowers. About the lateral petal. I love that. I love that. What I like as well is there's a mixture of illustration, traditional, and the photographs here.
Helpful. That is.
Yeah, very. This is the modern field guide. Then look, you've got your little bar chart at the top of flowering time and when the leaves come out.
Flower,
look, in leaf,
I like
in flower. That's pretty
that
cool,
is clever, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Then you've got your obviously, you've got your distribution maps here, right? But then hold on, I just want to find one little thing if I can find it. Look at this. So look, here are all the hybrids of common spotted orchid. This is detail. This is so fantastically detailed.
You've got dragonflies. They've got a cross section of the dragon. That's really cool.
Look at this lizard orchid. Some great photographs as well. But then it shows the flower and all of its different stages. Look, here it is, unwinding, and there it is, the lizard orchid when it's completely open, smelling like an old goat. And yes, well, that's what they say they do. They smell like old goats. I mean, this is, these really sort of redefine the field guide. When I were a kid, when I were a lad, sorry, that's 4. Right, when I were a lad, field guides had to be illustrated. And when the first photographic field guides come out, everyone turned their nose up at them. They said, oh, no, the illustrations are the best. The illustrations are the best. Well, look at this. The photographs are absolutely outstanding. And they're really useful photographs in terms of helping you identify the plant and explain its biology. But it's got the illustrations as well.
Both are really helpful in different ways.
This is the future of field guides. Look at this. And listen, okay. Imagine you find an orchid,
like
right?
A boy in a sweet shop.
Seriously, imagine you find an orchid, right, but it's not in flower. Oh, bit of a disaster.
Oh, no.
Not now. Just the leaves. Oh, yes. I rest my case. I cannot wait to get into Sean Cole and Mike Waller's Britain's Orchids, published by Wild Guides. And yes, there we are.
It is cool.
It is. Princeton Press.
Very cool. Anyway. Get your guides in, your orchid guides, your dragonflies, your birds, your beavers, your hedgehogs, everything in. Let's go to our quiz reveal. You can continue reading.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. I've just opened the front. And there's a little picture here of all the other guides they've got. Let's see which ones I've got. Right. Have I got Britain's ferns? No, I haven't. I've got spiders and I've got insects. I've got butterflies. Well, I haven't got day-flying moths. I haven't got hoverflies either. I've got reptiles, amphibians, birds, mammals, arable bryophytes, Britain's plant galls. I've got Europe sea mammals. That's another cracker in the series. We're not getting paid for this, by the way. People don't think we're getting paid to plug all this. I know we're not getting paid at all. I just love this book. I absolutely love it. This is okay.
Your Christmas is sorted, isn't it?
Yeah, because I could have arable bryophytes for Christmas.
That's what you're getting. You're getting arable bryophytes for Christmas.
I look forward to Christmas morning. There won't be any bryophytes out in the fields. What am I going to do with my new book?
You're going to have to wait. It's all about the anticipation. Yeah, okay. Anyway, on to the quiz. Third time lucky. Let's see if we can get to it this time. Let's have a little listen to see what this... Tricky. Yeah. Only a couple of people got that right. On Facebook, we've got Anise, we've got Jeanette, we've got Barbara, and on Twitter, we have Mike. So only 4.
4 people?
4 people.
Yeah, tricky.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
Well, sadly, I mean, a few years ago, a lot more people would have got this because it would have been a more frequent species. But it is, of course, the song of the redstart.
Yeah.
Redstart.
Go on, redstart.
African migrant comes to our woodland. Would have nested in the woods around our house.
Yeah, not anymore.
Until about, I don't know, 70s or 80s. So they would have been in the woods around our house. But since we've been here, they've sadly not been here. Like so many of those sub-Saharan migrants, they've declined dramatically. Principally, of course, because of... I would imagine loss of habitat is the first thing, of course, and then the second thing is the enormous decline in our insect fauna. 70% declines we're recording in some parts of Europe in terms of the number of flying insects, and that's what they eat. So 70%.
Yeah.
Can't have the birds without the insects, can you? Okay, so just to wrap up the other quiz, the impromptu one. Remember, I showed you this skull. Here we are. So look, it had. Did anyone get this one?
Well, yeah, I read there's a list. So this is kind of a combined list for both skulls. Okay. People saying badger, roe deer, muntjac, sheep, squirrel, rabbit, or stoat.
Okay. So, well, this is the skull of a muntjac. So here are the teeth here, which show us that it's a herbivorous animal. And then I pointed out these characteristic indentations here and the ridges that run down the top here. And you can see when you think of this Jackie type face,
Quite
hasn't
small,
it? Really,
small deer.
Yeah, there we are. It's lost a bit of its nose, but yes, this is the skull of a muntjac. There we are. That's the first one.
Look at the second.
Okay, go on then.
Second one.
What do you think? That was in the goshawk's nest.
It's very characteristic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. So there we are. It's got those incisors there. It's in the goshawk's nest. Goshawks prey on quite a large number of these animals, certainly in urban areas, in Berlin, for instance. They're pretty much living on them. It is a grey squirrel.
Of course, mainly.
Grey squirrel, yeah. I mean, you might have gone rat, but the cranium's much broader. On a rat, you've got a very narrow cranium, so the whole skull is much longer, and the squirrel's skull is broader. Probably because they need bigger muscles for cracking open the nuts, I imagine.
Yeah, here, and there's the indentation there.
Okay, should we do birthdays?
Let's do birthdays. Lots of birthdays. Lots and lots of birthdays. Let me have a little look. Right, I wanted to read this message out. This is a message from Ronald Verheyen, who says, on the 11th of September is my 69th birthday. I never miss a broadcast of SIBC. I am from Belgium. I always feel sad when your programme comes to an end. You're both fantastic people. It's very sweet.
It's very kind.
So sad I couldn't sign your hen harrier petition because I'm non-British. I'm a naturalist since I was young. I started a bat box project in my garden and have long-eared bat in it.
Wow.
Long-eared bat in your bat box.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's really cool. Really cool. And every year he goes to the Hay on Wye and hopes to meet us there once.
Oh, the festival. Book festival.
Yes.
Okay.
And
keep writing books. We might meet him there.
And good luck with Autumn Watch.
That's very kind of him, Ronald. Thank you so much. Nice that we're beaming out to Belgium.
It's lovely. Yeah. I'd also like to wish Rory a very happy 11th birthday. Rory Bracken, happy birthday to you. Hope you have a fantastic day. We've got Graham Smith as well. Very happy birthday. Never misses a show, apparently. So thank you very much for that. We also have Clive Green. Thank you very much. Happy birthday. We've got Flo Blackburn, your partner Kevin Newell. Birthday tomorrow. So very happy birthday, Kevin. We've also got Maria Payne, whose birthday it is on. We've got Susanna Raynham, who's 51 tomorrow and has never seen a badger. Oh. That's a shame. Never seen a badger. Yeah. And Andy Howard, who did the osprey clip, the slow-mo osprey in the water, which we showed you 3 or 4 times a minute ago.
Which was okay. I mean, it was all right. I mean, amazing.
It was really cool. It's his 50th birthday today.
Happy birthday, Andy.
Very happy birthday, Andy. I hope you have a fantastic day. And, you're out celebrating, safely, of course.
Yeah. With the ospreys.
With your ospreys.
They might be moving away by now.
Yeah. Jenkins as well. Happy birthday for Monday. So lots of birthdays out. We all hope you have a fantastic birthday, whatever day it happens to fall upon. Have a great week.
I've got a whiz now because having gone on so much about
let's not
orchids. I've got to take the dogs to have their haircut and I'm running late, so I'm going to have to whiz. So we're saying goodbye. Remember Emma was going to be on a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
But we had technical issues as we've had today.
Oh, very quickly, I have to say about my hoodie.
Yes.
I do have to. So a couple of weeks ago, very, very kindly, I was sent a hoodie and a t-shirt by Koala Chess Art. You can find him on social media. It's a guy called Simon who makes the most amazing graphics.
Like marsupial koala game of chess.
Koala Chess Art. And it makes sense in a minute because he does these most amazing drawings. Look, I've got a velociraptor blowing bubbles.
Of course you have.
What, of course. I also have a triceratops on a dance floor.
Yes, of course.
I have a triceratops, but you can get a T-Rex playing tennis.
Yeah.
You can get all these cool dinosaurs.
They were rubbish at tennis, though. When was the last time we saw T-Rex win Wimbledon?
Oh, it's a little while ago, but they give it a good effort. So they can only do what they've got.
Shoot up the rackets. Shoot up the rackets.
But it's
really
the ball,
cool
boys ideas.
And girls.
If you know anyone, really into dinosaurs or the other animals too, it's kind of animals doing unusual things you never expect. Koalas playing pool, which is why it's called Koala Chess Art.
Are they any good?
So yes.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, are the koalas any good at chess?
Oh, but wow, they spend a long time wrapped around eucalyptus thinking about it.
I've got to get those 2 poodles to get
we've got to go.
Shorn. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a bit of a long one today, so thank you for keeping with our ramblings. And we will see you. Next week.
See you next week. Right,
bye, everyone.
Leave you with the Eagles. Bye.